Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast. This is the podcast where we have digital discussions, the worlds of sports, pop culture, social media, and wrestling. This is indeed our week of wrestling on Popternative. 7 days, 7 wrestling interviews, and I'm really excited to be joined by professional wrestler Speedball Mike Bailey from Montreal. Mike, welcome to Popternative.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
For sure. So, we talked a little bit about it on Twitter as well, but the last couple, 3-4 years has been incredible for pro wrestling. It's just, there's no surprise there. You even look at the independent scenes. It's just like all around the world, wrestling seems to be more popular and popular. It's just it's a good time for wrestling.
Right. It's really in the last few years. It's really blown up. It's crazy. There's more guys now making a living at pro wrestling from independent wrestling, and that's amazing. That's wonderful to see. Just people, and it's true for most media as well, but people just now have a platform outside of TV to just spread their art and share what they do with everyone, and that's just been working out so well for pro wrestling.
For sure. And it's like you've been in this industry for a while, and you're still typically a younger guy, a younger wrestler, up and coming. But it's one of those things where, did you kind of expect the transitions that occurred, like wrestling 5 years ago, wrestling now? I'm sure there's a lot of changes, and I'm sure you didn't even expect any of them.
Right. Well, looking at it from the outside, in it and trying to do it and keep up with it and keep up with all the new opportunities and everything that's happening, it kind of feels like it's happening a lot slower than in retrospective. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Was there kind of a point in time, when did you decide that you wanted to be a pro wrestler? Was it kind of when in high school? Were you younger? Were you a bit older? When did you decide?
See, I kind of always knew is the thing. I must have been 6 or 7 when I first saw Kane trying to set the Brood on fire on Raw in 96 or 97 or something, and I was like, wow, that's what I want to do. And it's that's been in my head ever since. That was 20 years ago, and there's been moments where I've doubted that was the thing that was going to happen for me, that I would be able to, this would be my job and my life, but it's been there ever since, and I never really let go of that idea at moments when I probably should have.
You mentioned it a little bit. I mean, it's a great time for independent wrestlers, and there's all this whole thing where it's almost like the industry has shifted, where the goal of getting, to the WWE, which is in a lot of people's minds, but like you said, independent wrestlers are able to make a living. They're able to book all around the world. So there's been a shift in that sense in the industry as well, right, Mike?
Right. It used to be a lot rarer that there would be quote unquote successful guys outside of the that weren't wrestling on TV. I mean, whether it was WCW or TNA, there was always those guys, but now it's a lot more common thing to have guys that are not even subjectively just successful or good at wrestling or having a great flourishing career, that are not on TV, not even on TV. They're just doing their own thing and they're doing great.
Yeah, and it's it's one of those things too where you look at you and what you do in the ring. I mean, it screams wow factor. Everyone that knows Speedball Bailey, your work, everyone knows that you're there to kind of create those moments where people are going to talk about for weeks and weeks to come. For people who have not checked out Speedball Mike Bailey, be sure to check him out at a local wrestling event, because he is fantastic. When did you decide that was the style that you wanted to do? Because you mentioned Kane and the Brood, which is more traditional style, but you're the high flyer. I want to do things that no one has ever done before. When did you decide that you wanted to do that?
Yeah, so I was a big, like all kids or most people who started watching wrestling back then, I was only a WWE fan until I was 12, and then I came across guys it was most notably early Ring of Honor guys, but most notably Loki and Amazing Red. And you didn't get to see their characters, you didn't get to hear them do promos, you didn't see any of the storylines, you just saw the matches they have and see how impressive they were and things they did that were just completely mind-blowing. And well, I don't know if you're familiar with that one famous match Loki and Amazing Red had in Ring of Honor.
Of course.
That just starts off where they do like a Matrix style file sequence. That's to this day absolutely insane, right? So that for me, that changed it for me. That was like, I want to do this. This seems a lot more fun than all the pro wrestling I've seen before. And then I had already been like just on my own practicing, like doing flips and stuff. And then I started Taekwondo. And then so when I started wrestling, it just made sense, you know, since I could do the big kicks and big flips and everything, to just make that an essential part of my style.
It's 2018 is right around the corner, but I just wanted to know who has been the coolest person you have wrestled, and who is your dream opponent that you have not wrestled yet.
So, well, Will Ospreay is out of this world. Honestly, he's one of the guys I have some of my favorite matches with. But there's, again, this is a question I want to, like, there's so many people,
you know, I know.
So many. I will say this, though. Takeshita Konosuke, who is the DDT heavyweight champion right now, he is possibly the best wrestler on earth. Like, it's amazing to me that people don't know him, because everything he does in the ring looks perfect, and he is the guy whose matches I love to watch the most. Everything he does is picture perfect. He doesn't have like a super flashy moveset. You know what I mean? A lot of it's a throwback to the 80s, but it still just looks so cool and perfect in every way. As far as the people I'd like to wrestle, now the answers to that are, my number one answer is John Cena.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I'm wrestling John Cena, that means things are going all right.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And you know what? I'm a big fan of John Cena's work. I'm a big fan of a lot of these big guys in the WWE that get a lot of heat for no reason. I mean, I think Roman Reigns has one of the best spears in my opinion, we've ever seen. Like, I think Roman Reigns is fantastic. But my question to you, this is an interesting question. So, and I've asked a lot of people this, and I had Moose, who's on Impact Wrestling, who's in Ring of Honor. I asked him this because he's kind of the example that I give. So it's pretty cool to ask him that. But, like, you know, the style that you do, a lot of big guys are starting to do that style. A lot of these really big, heavy-hitting wrestlers that are doing things like Keith Lee or Moose or Donovan Dijak, right? Who are like bigger guys doing some of the stuff that you do. What do you think about that? Because that's kind of untraditional, unorthodox wrestling, where the big guys are doing moves on the top rope. The big guys are doing flips. It's almost like we haven't seen that as much. Are you a fan of that? I'm just curious.
Of course, I'm a huge fan of Moose, who I've never wrestled but would love to. Keith Lee as well, who I'm wrestling in February in Ireland. But
that Ireland, that whole card is stacked.
Man, that OTT is one of my favorite places to wrestle. I've had some crazy matches there in 2017. I just love it. But so my answer to this is in two parts, right? So cool moves in wrestling is about pushing the envelope, right? So when someone starts doing something with an extra rotation, then you got other guys trying to add an extra rotation, and when big guys start doing this, then bigger guys start doing it, and then bigger guys start doing it, and then that forces the little guys to come up with stuff that's even more impressive than a big guy doing the stuff the little guys were doing, you know what I mean? So it's all about pushing it, and I believe that just helps wrestling.
No, I agree with you.
That is the best thing that can happen for wrestling.
No,
right?
I agree 100%. The other thing, too, is you mentioned, like, underrated wrestlers. I mean, people say, especially with, like, 205 Live, like, with WWE, like, the cruiserweights, people say on social media, and you might be like, oh, no, I don't know about this. You definitely know about this. People are saying that you're probably one of the most, like, underrated, like, wrestlers on the planet right now. When you see that type of stuff on social media, does it kind of, like, I'm sure it, like, motivates you, it gives you kind of confidence and wants to, and you makes you want to kind of continue doing it? Because I'm sure, you know, guys that have been doing it for such a long time and that have been doing it, and, you know, maybe they're struggling. That's kind of some motivation, right? Where someone's saying that you're, like, one of the best in the world at what you do.
Yeah, I mean, of course it's nice, and I appreciate the fan support always, and it means a lot to me when people are saying that I'm one of the most underrated guys out there. But I'm very, very self-critical about like my matches and what I do, and I look at it as, my art, and it's very important to me. It's all every time I have a match, it's always maybe that sounds silly, but it's always mainly for me.
Mm-hmm.
I always just want to push myself, and like this goes back to a question that I get a lot, which is, are you nervous before you wrestle? Which most people that aren't like involved in wrestling that ask that, but I want to make myself nervous. I want to challenge myself always. So I've never cared that I was underrated or the platform where I was going to wrestle, even if I'm going to wrestle in front of 20 people. If I picked up a little show somewhere in Quebec and no one's going to ever see it, it's in front of 20 people, I'm still going to try to push myself and do my best, even if it's not on the biggest scale possible. It's really for me, and that I always want to, you know what I mean? I always want to do the best art possible, no matter where I am, no matter where.
Oh, 100%. You are from Montreal, Quebec. I am from Montreal, Quebec as well. And this is a place where it is no surprise, but the success and the popularity of wrestling is out of this world. And you look at guys like Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn from Montreal. What do you think about the Montreal scene, and how has it grown over the years? And seeing guys like Kevin Owens, used to be Kevin Steen, and Sami Zayn that are in the WWE, does that kind of give you like the motivation to one day you want to be in their footsteps?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, they were great. They stood out. You know what I mean? There's a lot of other places in the world that are exactly like that, where you have like a couple guys that come out of this region or area because it's isolated. So this is what's happening in Quebec right now. You have a lot of guys that are really, really good that should be, you know what I mean, wrestling in PWG or in the UK or in Japan, but there's not as much visibility for the indie wrestling fans to watch stuff that's here in Quebec because it's not put out at much, so they don't get as many bookings. But this is what happened for me when I did finally go out and go. I'd been wrestling for a while, and I'd been wrestling good people in Quebec for a while, so I was ready. You know what I mean? There was no chance of me like having my first CZW match was a big deal for me, and I did that at a point where I was ready, and I had myself down enough that I wasn't gonna, go to CZW and then the fans be like, maybe he's not ready yet. No, I've been doing this for a while, and I was ready. So that's kind of the good thing that happens. But on the flip side of it, if you look at the UK, right, and they're probably the hottest scene, I would say maybe like 8 years ago they were like Canada.
Yeah.
Like it was just growing, it was starting out, and they were just starting to like bring people from elsewhere to come into the UK and wrestle and give seminars and share the knowledge with them. And that's what's starting to happen in Canada, and that's great. And I'm hoping it follows the same way the UK went, and that it just starts exploding. But that's on, there's a lot of promotions that are doing great, that are starting to become major organizations that get a lot of visibility, like places like Smash, IWS, C4, FLQ, NSPW, places that are just getting bigger, and it's just going to take one of those places completely blowing up, and then other places are going to follow suit. And then hopefully the scene here can be like the scene in the UK.
Absolutely. Well, we'll wrap up, but Mike, thank you so much for joining us, and all the best in 2018, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Where can people follow you on social media?
At Speedball Bailey on Twitter and Instagram are the two main places.
Perfect. Well, until next time, this is Speedball Mike Bailey and PD Beats signing off Popternative. Be sure to catch previous episodes of Popternative on YouTube and on iTunes as well. This has been our week of wrestling episode. There's going to be more to come. Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.